Three,
Got
two,
it.
go.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Corey Thompson from Dice Tower Dish and Above Board TV.
And this is the Podfather of Gaming, Stephen Bonacore. You are listening to Board Games Insider, episode 309, and we're recording this on the very special date of February 29th, 2024. We love that date, that leap year date. Board Games Insider is proud to be powered by Board Game Geek. Corey Thompson yes, and he's showing a Board Game Geek mug there. Very
I love
nice.
these mugs. They're big and they're bright and they're orange and
They
I think they're cool.
they hold all kinds of great liquid. So Corey, you're in a undisclosed location. I haven't seen you in this office, which is your true home office in a while. You've been, of course, a lot at the LA studio for Above Board. You've been
Yeah,
at your gaming house in Santa Rosa. You've got some places to be. But this is actually your
yeah.
home in Woodlawn, Woodfair,
Woodland, California. It's a
Woodlands,
suburb
California.
out of Sacramento.
Very, very cool.
So yeah,
You got a
happy
little downtime
weekend.
finally. Is that what it is?
Uh, for a couple days, I'm actually racing off to Dice Tower West in 3 days. I'm going to be driving down to Vegas, about an 8, 9 hour drive.
Which is where I'm
Uh,
going to meet you in a few
there
days.
you go.
Awesome.
So anybody who's coming to Dice Tower West, seek us out. It's really easy to find Steven. He's the loudest one in the room, no matter what room you're in, even in
Yep.
Vegas.
Yep. Yep. What's going
And
on
I'll
in
be
you?
nearby.
What's going on in your life though? And besides the what's going to be going on? What's happening right now for you?
Sure. I am currently not on a boat in the middle of the Caribbean, Mr. Bougie Boaty
Uh,
McBoatface.
we'll get there during my segment. Keep going.
Yeah. Still not on a boat. There's no boat over there. There's no ocean over there. So, like I said, I'm getting ready for Dice Tower West. I'm really excited. I'm going to see so many different friends down in Vegas. It's going to be so great to see them all again. I feel a little bad that I'm missing the Gamma trade show this year, but it was kind of a choice between going to one or
Yeah.
the other. They're overlapping to a significant degree. On top of that, Dice Gamma is in Louisville, Kentucky. So it for me living in California, it would be a really long flight to get there, a really long flight to immediately come back.
Right. Right.
So something had to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so really looking forward to that, and just been playing games with friends and planning videos. One game that I wanted to throw out there that I heard about that I thought was really bizarre and interesting, Black Mold by
Of course.
Terrible Games.
Isn't that just a topic that people would just love to make games about? Black mold. It's like,
It's really interesting you say that because one of the hosts of Above Board, Leaf, actually emailed me, and his subject line said in the email, "Black Mold."
that's
And I
great.
told him, if you're living in a house that I run and own, please never send me an email that starts with Black Mold. But anyway,
Yes.
Black Mold, the board game, the mechanism in Black Mold is you can do as much stuff as you want on your turn, but you have to hold your breath the whole time.
Get out of here.
So thematically, it's a game about escaping kind of a fungal invasion, Last of Us kind of situation. And you can do as much as you want as long as you don't breathe on your turn.
That
They have an alternate, they have a sand timer, and you can do as much with the sand timer. But I really like this idea of hold your breath, do all your actions, try to get them all done. I thought that was really unique and fun.
I bet I will beat you at this game because I actually
Probably.
I actually can hold my breath up back in the day at least. I mean, I sure with a few little breath exercises. I used to like compete with like friends and stuff like that in the pool just to show how long I can stay under, almost passing out. Like sometimes I've got a lot of
I
will.
was a competitive swimmer for decades.
You got the swimmer's body. Yeah, I can see
No, I
that.
really don't. I
Absolutely.
have the potato body
No,
right
you
now, and
really
I
do.
think it's
That is. I would love to
um,
if you can bring that to Dice Tower West. I would love to see that game.
Probably not to West, but I can probably bring it to something else coming around the corner. Maybe the Gathering in April.
Oh, that'd be good. That'd be cool. All right. So over here at the Podfather Gaming, as Corey has already informed you, I am on a cruise, and it's not a gaming related cruise, though. I am here with, of course, Paula and friend of the show, Marion, and her husband, Harvey, and her son, Corwin. And we're having a great time. In fact, we're wearing these cool thematic t-shirts. For the first time on this show ever, I'm not wearing a Podfather t-shirt. I'm wearing one that says, "Friends, don't let friends cruise alone," as I take my shirt
Really? You're
almost
on a
off.
boat? Really?
We're on a boat in the middle. In fact, I actually looked it up right before I got on, and I just to see where like we were exactly, because we had already been to St. Kitts and Nevis, and
Yeah.
yesterday was St. Thomas, and we're now going toward their private island called Coco Cay. But I opened up Google Maps, and it's showing us about 100, maybe 80 miles north of Turks and Caicos, which is close to Haiti and Dominican Republic. So we're in that area right now. If your geography is better than mine, you know where I'm talking about. Turks and Caicos, big place to go for like snorkeling. But that's where we are, and we're steaming. And we're on this ship. This is called the Icon of the Seas, which is now the newest and largest ship in the world, and it is absolutely astonishing. So the point of this is a non-gaming cruise. We've actually met a few like game adjacent people. We're sitting there playing like Can't Stop in the bar,
Very
and
cool.
people are like, "Oh, we play games all the time. Yeah, we play Rummy and we play this." And we see some people playing Rummy Cube actually. But so we're explaining this game, and then we took out a Bonanza, and they were like, "Oh, what is this one?" So the gaming, always spreading the love of gaming. I'm going to be doing some travel kind of blogging on this ship just to. Again, to add some more content to the channel, and to hopefully I'm going to cross post it onto some travel or cruising type sites, again, to spread the love of, that we are gamers and this is what we like to do. When we get together, we socialize, we do this stuff. And by the way, we've got all this gaming stuff here that you can
That's
get
super
involved with
cool.
as well. So Marion is doing some of her stuff as well with that. The only other thing I want to bring out is that, as I mentioned last week, Play2Z has launched their first crowdfunding
Dun,
campaign
dun,
for
dun.
Sending Empires, the Zenith Edition, and it funded in 3.5 hours or something like that. Very
Yeah.
cool. It moves along. Very happy with how things are going so far. But if you're hearing my voice, give it a shot. Just go over to Kickstarter and check it out. You can type in Play2Z. You can type in Ascending Empires, and you'll see what it's about. Now, it is a 4X game playable in an hour. Who owns like the ultimate 4X game? Who's designed the ultimate 4X game playable in an hour? That's Roy Canaday, who got a chance to play it with Zev live on the Dice Tower, and Roy loved it.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, Roy's a great guy. I shouted him out during his last light campaigns because he's such a good guy, and that game is great.
He is.
But if you like that style where you got your tech trees and you're building your empire and stuff like that, and then of course after a while, after you explore and you exploit, you got to go and exterminate some things like the other players and things like that. So you get all that kind of fun stuff with some very different mechanics for this game. So please check out Ascending Empires Zenith Edition, which is on Kickstarter right now by our company, Corey's and mine, and Jeff Engelstein and Zev and Jeff Anderson and all these great people
As a
from the game
complete
industry.
outsider to play to Z games with no association whatsoever, I feel that everybody should buy 30 to 35 of them.
Well, I would never suggest such a thing. However, it makes a great Christmas gift for the family, for your gaming friends, and all that kind of stuff. In the
I think your
meantime,
cat wants one.
everybody's got to have
Mhm.
Ascending Empires, which is amazing. Let's get over to the event deck. So, Corey, we don't have a lot of news, but some of the stuff we have is pretty darn cool. And the
Yeah,
first one was an announcement from those who used to be part of Funko Games and Prospero Hall. Right now,
right.
we found out that just like last episode or 2 episodes ago, that Funko basically is leaving board gaming, and lots of their assets were sold over to Goliath. Is that correct? Right?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
But the people were all let go, sadly. However, what do we got here, Corey?
Yeah. So Prospero Hall is an in-house development studio. They really were known for Horrified, Villainous. They did a lot of work for Ravensburger, and then Funko bought the development center a while ago. I don't remember the exact date, but Prospero Hall is an accumulation, a lot of people in Prospero Hall, and they were just putting out the Funko games. So when Goliath was bought by Funko, a lot of the people in Prospero Hall were let go. It was, I think, all of them. It was just there were so many people, and they weren't doing development with Prospero Hall anymore. So now Chris Rowlands, who is a friend of the channel and one of the main designers in Prospero Hall, has announced the formation of a new gaming conglomerate, Tempest Workshop. It's been announced all over, including on the normal news channels. But he sent kind of a personal letter about it on Facebook, which I think sums it up best. He wrote, "A little over a month ago, I was the game development team lead at Prospero Hall and Funko Games. Today, I'm amazingly proud to announce I am co-founding a new full-service game design and development studio alongside some of the amazing alumni from my previous studio. It's called Tempest Workshop, a name reflecting our approach to design and innovation, our dedication to our craft, and ultimately a nod to the group of creatives and methodology I love with my whole heart." It's really a touching piece that he wrote. I won't read all of it.
Right.
There's a new website that's tempestworkshop.com. And I'm really excited to see what comes out of this group.
Yeah.
Prospero Hall's some great hits over the years.
They certainly have, and there's certainly some great people there. You mentioned Chris Rowlands, of course. Isaiah Vallejo, I know him. Stephanie Straw, who's gonna be their
Yeah.
community and development. She and I go back a ways, early Stronghold. Wonderful, dear person. I'm so happy that they've all gotten together to do this. Out of the ashes of something that was sad to see go. They've got some great games. They will continue to make some great games in
Oh
the
yeah.
future. I
And
think
the
that's
list of
great.
people is just huge. Corby Sears is in there.
Hmm.
Daniel Stoltenberg, Josh Manderville. So many good names have joined this group. I'm really excited.
Yeah, very cool. Now, this is a great one. This is a next news story has to do with our friend Eric Lang, who everybody knows from doing lots of big games. Usually, he
Yeah.
had done them with Simon over the years, but in the last several years, he's been working with other companies to bring a more mass-friendly
Yeah.
style game out, and he's
Eric has
finally been able
definitely,
to do
yeah,
it.
he's been bitten by the mass market bug and wants to kind of blur that line. We've had a problem for a long time that there's companies that do mass market games and companies that do hobby games. And we don't need that strong distinction. Both have their pluses and minuses, and we in the hobby side tend to poo-poo mass, and mass tends to poo-poo hobby as being too complex. And Eric is really working to make it one unified area of gaming and learn. So he spent the last several years working for Exploding Kittens, doing titles that were more on the mass market side, and he's using that knowledge now. Sorry, I've stolen the thunder. For his first title with Hasbro, Eric Lang and Ken Gruhl have released Reterra. So, Life in Reterra is the first game in a proposed series of Reterra games. It's also the first Hasbro title with author credits on the box. So, this is a big move that Hasbro is trying to get more into the traditional hobby space. And Reterra, it does sit, I got a chance to look at it at a couple conventions, and it definitely sits in this space between hobby and mass. And it is just wonderfully combinatorial, but also approachable and really addictive. It's a great game.
Oh, you've actually had a chance to play it.
I didn't play a full game.
Okay.
I saw all the components and went through the mechanisms and saw the gameplay, and I was really intrigued by it.
Yeah, no, yeah, Eric has kept this very, very close to the vest over the last few years because he's been working as you mentioned with Exploding Kittens and now with Hasbro for this game. So I'm excited to see, somebody with the talent of Eric Lang
Yeah.
come out and Ken Gruhl, let's mention both of them. And that's going to be great to see this come out and to see what they would do now in a more let's call it family oriented, mass space. I think this is really, really cool.
Yeah, it was just announced at the Cannes Game Festival. Just like Cannes in France has a film festival, there's also a game festival every year. And there's a lot of significant announcements. So Life in Reterra, a community rebuilding game,
Very, very
just
cool.
announced over at Cannes.
Very neat. The next one comes out of Dicebreaker, the website Dicebreaker, which carries lots of news, and it has to do with the Terry Pratchett Discworld
Yes.
series, which now is going to get some new treatment in gaming. We saw a lot of Discworld games come out of Martin Wallace board games, but now the Pratchett estate is giving the Discworld to some RPG development. Do you have any more information on this, Mister
Yeah, so
Dr.
there's
Thompson?
Modifius. I actually have it from Modifius's press release from both Modifius
Ah,
and Terry Pratchett's Discworld. Um, so as of today, this is breaking news. Modifius licenses tabletop games for Terry Pratchett's Discworld. And the first, so publisher of tabletop RPGs, war games, and board games, Modifius Enterprises, has secured the rights to produce tabletop games for Terry Pratchett's internationally best-selling Discworld series. After negotiating an agreement with the estate of the late Sir Terry, Modifius looks to publish tabletop games that honor the humor, satire, and darkly entertaining fantasy series. The first product that's going to come out is going to be later this year. There's going to be a role-playing game. And it's going to be a role-playing game taking place in the city of Ankh-Morpork and the greater Discworld. So I'm really excited about this. One of the holy grails of kind of game collectors has been the Ankh-Morpork board game, which has been really hard to find for a long time. And of course, there's, like you said, Martin Wallace has done a number of Discworld games that are just funny and entertaining and terrific, but they're getting harder and harder to find.
and the article on Dicebreaker goes into saying this is the first time that it's being turned into an RPG for this world. There was a
Yeah,
GURPS system adaptation for Discworld way back, but now this is now the first time it's going to be a Discworld RPG. So that's going to be interesting to hear, see how that all plays out.
absolutely. I love the world. I'm a big fan of Terry Pratchett and Discworld and all the books. So I'm excited about more board games coming.
Mm-hmm.
The RPG sounds absolutely fascinating, but I find so little time to play RPGs. I'm waiting on the next board game.
Very, very cool. So the next one's a small story, but we wanted to mention it because it was brought to our attention by a friend of the channel who doesn't want to use his name because he knows some insiders, and it has to do with gaming cafes in Quebec. And the gaming
Absolutely,
cafes
yeah.
are called Randolph, I believe, and the name itself is a tribute to Alex Randolph, one of the great older American designers back in the day. And these gaming cafes are being sold off now. Is that how it's working, Corey? Because
Yeah,
you did some research and you actually reached out to Joel,
yeah,
a friend of yours and mine from the gathering. Tell us a little bit about
yep.
this.
So I think this really showcases a company that not a lot of people hear about too much. Randolph is right now a huge board game design, publishing, and distribution company out of Montreal. The founder, Joël Gagnon, started by making board game cafes quite a
That's right.
long time ago, and they actually were the model system for Snakes and Lattes board game cafes throughout the US. So I wrote Joel, the news story that came across our desk is that the cafes are being sold. Now, the reason this is interesting is because Randolph was instrumental in the formation of the company we know as Hachette right now. A little bit of history, Hachette, there's a company, Hachette Livre, which is a book publishing company that's been around since the 1800s. That publishing giant partnered with Randolph to create Hachette USA, which is the board game company that now encompasses La Boîte de Jeu, Pardon We Are French, GRRR, Gigamic. They have a lot of the French companies under their umbrella. And they also have Studio
Right.
H, which is the design team that's just putting out tremendous numbers of really, really good
Right.
games.
And to make sure everyone understands, Hachette is the largest book publisher in France,
Yep.
largest book publisher in the world. And we've been talking about them quite a bit here on the show because at one point it was almost looking like they were going to become another Asmodee by continuously buying up companies. They held back.
Oh, they were
They have,
buying up so
yep,
many French companies. It
yep.
was crazy.
They've come back a little bit from that position. But here's another point where this is kind of an intersection here for these
Yeah.
game cafes in French Canada, which were
Yeah.
part of this whole conglomerate, but they're now being sold apart from this
And they are
other company.
independent from Hachette. So Hachette Book Publisher partnered with Randolph to make Hachette Board Game Company. That's old history.
Right.
Randolph is still an independent entity that works very closely with Hachette, but they are independent.
Mm-hmm.
Randolph still owned the board game cafes, but now Randolph has sold the board game cafes to a relative of the founder because there's a lot on his plate. Randolph right now is doing publishing and distribution and design and all this other stuff. The cafes
Right.
were nice and they were instrumental and a big piece of history in board game
Yeah.
cafes, but now they've been sold to another entity.
Right. And the
Hachette,
whole
not
and the
anymore.
whole tie-in back to Snakes and Lattes, which is interesting that, that is like the model, right, of great gaming
Yeah.
cafes. And these guys kind of brought that all up, and then Snakes and Lattes came out of that. So it's a whole big tie-in, and it all started in French Canada, which is kind of interesting. So
In the
thank you.
Montreal area. Yep.
Thank you, Corey, for doing a deep dive there with our friend Joel from the
Oh,
company
thanks to
to get
Joel.
more.
He's such a nice guy. And Joel's a friend
Joel.
of both of ours who
Yes.
goes to almost all of the conventions. The most
Yeah.
recent Randolph game that he turned me on to is Rami Rami, which is a really light rummy style card game. We've been playing it like crazy at the house.
Very,
So.
very cool. All right. With that, let's get over to strategy and tactics. So the first thing we have here is from Mike Walecki. He's at Madman W. And he says, I have noticed a lot of Kickstarters have add-ons for upgraded components. Oh, yes, they do. Better dice or play mats. Do these ever make sense to send to retail as an expansion? He puts that in quotes. Or are they too suited for public direct? Or are they suited for public direct from the publisher sales? He guess he's asking, well,
Yeah.
why these things don't go necessarily into distribution versus the game itself. Corey, do you have opinions on how that all works out?
So one of the ones that comes to mind is when Picture Perfect came out from Arcane Wonders. It came with these lovely acrylic clear pieces.
Yep.
And it turns out that that was a deal that Arcane had to get those reasonably cheap, so it was feasible to put them out as an expansion or a promo when it first came out. But now trying to keep up with them, it's just not worth it to print them on their own. So often it's down to money. If you're already doing all sorts of different things, especially with promo cards, if you're already printing sheets of cards, it gets way too expensive after the fact to print it as an independent entity.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's really difficult to bring these add-ons as just little separate pieces. If a game is a super hit, then you'll get a better chance of that happening, because then it'll be able to sit there kind of next to the base game to get these accessories.
And you also get these partnerships going on too. So specifically, like the company MeepleSource does high-end components, especially silk printed meeples, and they've partnered many times with Stonemaier Games to do high-end components for their games. So MeepleSource will take on the entire responsibility of doing the high-end component, and they'll sell it as an independent thing.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because you get a company like MeepleSource, you get a company like Board Game Geek, right? Our channel here, who do these geek up bits on Board Game Geek. They do these special components because they have a target audience that will go directly to them to see, well, oh, what could I geek up? What could I really have something? So it's just harder too hard for a retailer to maintain that breadth of product line. So you either, when you want these things, you either go back to the publisher who might maintain some stock on these accessories, or you go to a specialty source, Meeple Source or Board Game Geek. Very good to mention that in that whole thing.
Absolutely.
Sandro Blasic, he's at Fordocic. He says, where is the boundary between unique and a too unique game to pitch?
Oh my.
So he's talking about it from what sounds like from a designer perspective. I don't see a designer tag on him, but he's kind of saying, well, is there such thing as too unique to pitch? You want to take a shot, Corey? Go ahead.
I think if it's really, really crazy, then most of the big publishers won't want to risk it. There's certainly been some very unique games. We talked about Black Mold earlier, and that one went through Kickstarter. I suspect that that's a little crazy for publishers to jump on immediately.
Yeah.
But
so my opinion is there's no such thing as truly, too unique. You can always try, but one of the things about pitching is pitching a game is an art form. It's in and of itself, selling something that doesn't exist yet, right? You're selling an idea, you're selling this concept, and you have to know your audience, right? So don't go to Hasbro to pitch a game that you're going to have to hold your breath. Right? Think about that. That's just not going to sell to a company like that. However, some small, aggressive company who wants to make some kind of name, maybe they'll take it. Maybe they'll take a risk on that, right? So, and Play to Z, Zev looks at very unique games. So go to Zev, see what he's going to say. Sandra then asks, how much luck factor is acceptable in an easy to middle Euro game? So, luck is, luck, I think, luck has come back in style in a lot of ways. I think that the Euro games 5 years ago or more were like this. It's got to be absolutely everything is a streamlined thing. It's an optimization model, and I don't want to see any luck. But I
actually
think now
was the selling point on Euro games was no luck.
Right.
That was often the pitch.
But I think that it's absolutely acceptable. So let's start with some of the standard things. Cards in Euro games. There's cards in all Euro games. And if I get a card that's good for my engine, that's I got a little lucky. Or if I get one that's good for you, I try to bury it so you can't have it. So all of this is, I don't think there's again, when you're designing a game, when you're coming to that point, you just want to have it. You want to have a balance. You don't want to have dice rolling and moving, in a Euro game. That's obviously not a mechanic that makes any sense for something that's a streamlined game. But a certain amount of luck. Maybe dice are rolled, and those are the resources that are available. That was La Granja, the dice game. I'll use that mechanic.
Well, we've had the schism for a very long time that the Ameritrash style game was high theme, high luck, and the Euro style game was low luck, low theme. But what's come out of that is this understanding, and this is not my idea, a lot of people talk about this, that high luck, you feel that a game is very, very lucky, and it's acceptable if the game is very, very short. So a lot of people will take a very, very lucky game and have fun with it because it's crazy and lucky, as long as it's a 15, 20-minute game. If you have a 3-hour game where it's incredibly lucky and people don't feel like they've earned the things that they get, that psychologically, that just doesn't fly.
Absolutely. Chris Parrish, he's at CU Frisbee. Hey, Chris. I know Chris. When will Corey's name be added to the bumpers and the stingers during the episodes? We've already done that, Chris. So there you go. He asked that during the contest time last June. So thank you for still being a listener.
Now that it's all put up there, I have to leave.
He's off. He's gone. The next question, I'm not even going to ask. I'm not even going to read this question. I'm going to say Clint, who's a friend of the show. He's at Cheese with a Z on Board Game Geek. He's a wise guy, and he always tries to throw curveballs into our show. So Clint, when you start asking questions that are good for everybody, then I'll answer them on the show. But he created a question here that is not acceptable. Sorry, Clint.
He had a question later on. He asked me how Mo is doing, and
Oh,
Mo is
we're
my
gonna get that. We're gonna get there.
insane cat. So I just want to answer that one.
Go ahead.
Mo's fine.
Mo is doing well. Mo is Corey's hairless cat.
Yeah, yeah.
Mo,
Little demon, little golem.
he looks like a golem. He's adorable. When I was over there, he spent time in my luggage a lot, but I didn't mind because he didn't get any fur in there. He's got no
There you
hair.
go.
It's amazing. Michelle Burkholder at Burkhamg. Uh, okay, so this was she was going back to the question about Corey's name being in it, and she says, "I love the
Yeah.
addition of Corey on the show. It was also great before. When will you all make it official? Well, we have. Corey is officially not only an intern, he is an integral part
Yeah,
of
I've
the
been meaning
show."
to tell you that the checks have been bouncing. Like I should be paid more for this show, and it's just not coming through. So I
I'll
don't know who to speak
you
to
should
about
take it up
that.
with the accountant. His name is
Okay,
Ignacy Chevychek. Send him
I
get the
will.
check
I will.
from a Chevychek anyway. All right. So Michelle then asks, I have heard that it is best to have a basic or even ugly prototype when playtesting a game so that the game is being critiqued on play/mechanics and such. At what point in the design process is it important to start making the game pretty for playtesters? This is a very interesting question. What about games that
Yeah.
might be built around a gimmick component or a specific theme? Is it important for those kinds of games to get components/art developed earlier in the development process, or are mechanics always a separate consideration from theme and art? Corey, why don't I?
That's a really tough one.
Well, let me go,
Yeah.
because I mean I've always
Yeah.
said that when you show a game to a publisher, you're showing your vision. And when you don't put any effort into it, it kind of reflects that you don't have a creative sense for what you're looking for. So as a publisher, what I always wanted, I wanted to see something that, look at, you are allowed to steal with aplomb from all over the internet, all of the photos. So I had got plenty of like
Be careful,
science.
man. Be
No.
careful.
Well, let me finish my sentence fully. When I got plenty of prototypes for, like, say, science fiction themes that had Star Trek and Star Wars characters in there, go for it. I've had plenty of fantasy pitches with Lord of the Rings guys in the game and things like that. And you're allowed to do it as long as that is not obviously going to be the final product. It can't be.
Right.
So you go for it. Steal away just to show people kind of, this item is going to be this beautiful sword. So go get Glamdring and make it that sword. There's going to be a small people in the game. Go get some nice pictures of Frodo and things like that and put them in the game, right? So nothing wrong with doing any of that. I think it is actually a good thing to show kind of your sense of what the way that you would want your game to be presented in the end. Now, she does mention,
Definitely,
go ahead.
yeah. The people who are looking at the game and deciding whether or not to publish it, they are game players. They are people. They've seen a lot of games.
Yep.
So I would think if you give them plain white index cards with Sharpie written, this is what this card does, it's not going to have the same impact as if you put some sort of art on there. You are, like Steven said, you're selling your game.
Right.
One of the biggest ripples in pitching and prototype recently was No Mahalo by friend Ammon Anderson. And Ammon had his own art. He drew all the gnome stuff. He had laser cut little pieces for it. It was gorgeous. The prototype looked fantastic. And I can't help but think, I mean, it's a fantastic game, and the gameplay was very, very solid, but the art really helped. So it had that image for everybody to put on this fantastic game
Right.
that was making the circles.
Right. And Michelle is actually kind of in her question, she's talking about when you're showing it to play testers. Now,
Sure.
my way of addressing this is when you're presenting it to the publisher to say, this is the vision that I have. Play testers Sure, you can do the same thing. I mean, if you're going to be doing it anyway for the publisher, you can do it for your playtesters as well. But you gotta be flexible too, right? So things are going
Yeah.
to change in the game, right? So not every card has to have exactly the right thing, but do something. There's a lot of people
And
out there that can do this stuff for you too.
if
So do
these,
something,
yeah, if these playtesters are other game designers, they certainly understand. I've seen
right?
plenty of game designers give a just white, black and white Sharpie index card version
Yeah,
to another game designer, and they see through it and they go, "Oh,
right.
this is a cool idea."
Right. And of course, it's the stage too, right? If you're like it's an early stage thing, you're not even showing it to a publisher yet. Yeah, you could have little pieces of paper that just have some words on it, and everyone gets the idea of what's going on. And then as you progress, you can put more stuff onto it. So, very interesting question. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle continues with, as industry folks, what are the aspects of the industry slash work that bring you the most joy? Connecting with other people in the industry, like professionals slash gamers, playing games, attending conventions, design work, marketing. What parts of the work, even though they are your work or retirement passion, thank you, Michelle, are life giving more than energy draining? This is a great question, Michelle. This may be one of my favorite
Wow, it
questions I've
really
ever
is.
had. So, I mean, if you don't mind, Corey. So,
No.
I was not um uh, the taking of pitches kind of and the playing of prototypes was never my favorite part because it's really hard work. It's really rough, but I used to do lots of it, right? You go to Essen and I would take, oh God, I would have to, I'd be in 50 meetings like throughout that convention, maybe more, like more than 5 days, 10, more than 10 a day. So those were a little drudgery, but I loved being at conventions because at conventions, I could meet the gamers, the people who love what I was doing. That's energizing. That's wonderful to me. And now in retirement, in the passion of retirement in gaming, I go to conventions and I keep doing it, but I don't sit in a booth now. I'll wander through some booths, but I'll sit down and play games with everybody that's there. That's really the fun. I mean, playing games is really the fun part of the whole thing. Corey, what do you
It's
think?
my view on it has changed over the years.
Oh, okay.
At the beginning, I really found the most joy out of behind the curtain and inner circle. If I could hear about the games being worked on in the early stages and what was coming next and play them, it was the playing of games and being able to talk about these really cool inside stories. Now, I still enjoy that, but by far my favorite part of the industry are all the friends that I
Oh,
have and
yeah.
going to the conventions. There is no joy in my life as strong as when I walk into a convention and three or four people turn and go, "Oh, Corey, hey."
Yeah.
It's amazing. Walking into it's there's an awful lot of bars in our industry, but walking into the bar at BGG or walking into the bar at Origins and having the crowd just turn and recognize you and
Hey,
say
yeah.
hello and be happy to see you.
Yeah.
There's nothing as good as that.
It's true. It is a beautiful feeling, and I've said it again and again. Almost everybody in this industry are just lovely people, and
Yeah.
they all have the same goal. They want to make a living, they want to make some money, but they want to bring you joy from the stuff that they can put out. So
Yeah.
great stuff. Let's take one more. We've already taken Clint's how's Mo question, which is right there. Kevin Wardener, he's at Jercules. Hey,
I love that.
love that name. Did you guys cover Mystic Games 6 Siege debacle in your news segment at all, or would you
Ah.
care to comment on it now? Oh, we're gonna end
So,
on a low note here, it looks
well,
like.
there's actually an awful lot of stories that boil down to I backed this game, it hasn't come out yet.
Yes,
And
it
we
does.
we don't generally cover those. I understand that the Mythic Games story is a lot bigger than that. We've covered pieces of it.
Sure.
So Mythic Games has had troubles for a while now. They've had Kickstarters that have gone very, very late. They've asked for more money from the Kickstarters, and some of the Kickstarters they've asked for more money multiple times to deliver.
Yeah.
The other part of the story is Mythic has started selling off their IPs to other companies, and we've covered those in news stories. So I think Mythic at this point only owns deepest dungeon. And all of these other Kickstarters that have had trouble funding have moved to other companies to do the funding and the final fulfillment.
Yeah, I mean it's a shame, but and we go through this every once in a while with another company that can't come through. You have to understand that crowdfunding is not a guarantee. It's a buyer beware thing. You're trying to help a company. If in the end they can't make it happen, throwing up your hands
Yeah.
and screaming from from everything is just not effective. Don't be fooled again. Go to companies that have
Yeah.
great track records.
And then
You're never gonna see, I'm gonna pick a company because they're the biggest one maybe of all time on Kickstarter. You're never gonna see Simon fail in a Kickstarter because they've got the track
well, and
record.
that brings it full circle because actually the company that Mythic has sold most of their titles to is Simon. They're going to be fulfilling a lot of these.
Right.
But there was a lovely article on Board Game Wire. I say lovely. It's a good article, but it's sad that Mythic founders have been dealing with attacks and death threats
That
over the failure of their Kickstarter things. Let's keep in mind, Kickstarter is not a pre-order system. Kickstarter, in its original form, was you donated money hoping that a product would be made. And we are very spoiled at this point that the vast majority of Kickstarter things do turn into good, legitimate products. But we can't really get upset if something fails on Kickstarter. It's part of the deal.
absolutely 100% right. So, Corey, I think we've done a lot of questions here. Let's get over
Yes,
to
sir.
playtesting. So,
All right.
playtesting last week, you asked us a great question. Why don't you take us through that question while I pick out some interesting ones that the answers that came in?
Oh, such a cheater. So I had kind of a loaded question, and I was really curious how people would respond to this because it's a very niche thing. But semi co op games are a very difficult style of game to design and implement. Everyone works together, then one person wins. It has the problem of players wanting to tank the game or destroy the game in its entirety by not contributing or doing really evil things if they feel they won't win. So you have a whole bunch of people moving the game forward, but if one of those people feels there's no way I can win, they can just destroy it all down. With the classic example being Dead of Winter. So what is your favorite semi co-op title?
And that was the question that we
Oh,
asked everybody because it's so hard because there aren't a lot of them, and the ones that are out there you can even argue if they're they are semi co-ops. But Evan Halbert, he agreed. I think because I believe I said Dead of Winter was my favorite, and he said yeah, absolutely, that's his favorite. Chris Dennett, he said semi co-op games only work in groups where the consensus is that everyone losing is somehow worse than just you losing and someone else winning. Otherwise, as soon as someone feels they can't win, they will spend all their effort to tank the game and take everyone with them. This is what I
human
and everyone
nature,
else.
yeah.
I mean, that is a thing, and hopefully I don't think that is the case, right? And it's not the case with Dead of Winter, um because it's too hard to tank everything, I think, at that point, right?
Dead of Winter is where a lot of this discussion came up. When Dead of
Right.
Winter first came out, it was a super popular game, but the majority complaint was that if someone felt they couldn't win, they could purposefully tank the colony. Especially because there's a mechanism in there where everybody contributes to a communal goal in the colony, and if the goal is not met, then the colony fails. But the players could vote to kick out someone they suspect is tanking everything. So it was an interesting one.
I did you see any answers there that you liked?
A really interesting answer from Christian K. Le Havre. I I mean, I
Lahav?
had to just sit here, Le Havre. So
Well,
today's weird fun fact: any Euro game with the rule, in case of a tie, all tied players share the victory, can be seen as an obscure form of semi-co-op, where all players are trying to end up with the same number of points to all win together.
that's absurd.
However, one player can betray by scoring a bunch of points, forcing everyone else to lose. Uh, my group doesn't want to play Le Havre with me anymore.
That's pretty fun. I like the answer, but I don't agree that in any way would.
No, I
Yeah.
do think that semi-co-op as a strict mechanism has kind of gone the way of the dodo. And we have these almost semi-co-op things, which a lot of different people are talking about, which I find really interesting.
Our very good friend of the show, Uli Blenneman, who is the president of Spielworks
Yeah,
out in Germany, he says he just boom, he gave us the link to his answer, which is Land and Freedom, the Spanish Revolution and Civil War. I do not know this game. However, if
I
Uli
don't
Blenneman
either.
says it's an excellent game period, or it's an excellent semi-co-op, I think I'm gonna go look into it because Uli is one of the most knowledgeable guys and
Oh,
nicest
he
guys in
knows
gaming.
his stuff.
He really does.
So Kurt
But
von Hoyfeld had the answer that I was waiting for a lot of people to have. Has to be Nemesis, which I believe is also the highest ranked semi-co-op on BGG. Very
nice.
difficult mechanism. Uh, it feels unnecessary with games like Marvel Legendary or just plain Hidden Trader like Shadows over Camelot. So there's that gray zone there. When is it a trader game? When is it a semi-co-op?
Right, right. There's definitely some gray areas in this one. So very interesting answers. Some people really don't like the whole idea of semi co-op, and some people embrace it well. Corey, what did you also came up with this week's question? What did you come up with here?
So what do you think is the greatest board gaming sin? What
Oh,
thing that some board gamers do makes you the most angry or the most sad? Uh, Ideas like analysis paralysis, alpha player, eating Cheetos, jerky player, Steven, bad winner, bad loser,
so
constant talking.
constant. Uh, too chatty at the table, won't shut up. No.
Oh,
So we
you're
just
delightful, Steven.
I love you, man. Yeah, I had actually I rewrote this to put that little extra color in there so people can think about
Yeah,
it. But mine I've always said I've had a consistent answer for this. Mine I've always said is analysis paralysis. Look, if you're not playing in a tournament, if there's not something on the line other than, hey, I win, then don't just take a turn. Everybody's going to take a longer turn once in a while. It was like one of those moments you have, like, guys, just give me a second here. I just gotta. Okay, then you make your turn. Even when I
yeah,
play the deepest games, I just want to progress the game because it's more fun to see it being played out,
absolutely.
not to min max every little thing in a game. So analysis paralysis to me is the greatest sin. Don't be that person. And if you are that person, let me know so that we don't play any games together.
Mine is hyper competitiveness.
Okay, sure.
There's a group of players.
Yeah.
I've always said that players of board games, there's three main types. There's people who play to win, and the entire joy of the game is whether they win or not. There's players who play to explore, and the joy of the game is figuring out the mechanisms and doing weird stuff. And there's players who play to socialize, and the greatest joy for them is being with the group and talking and having those interactions. And I have a lot of trouble with people who immediately don't like the game because they lost or only like it when they're winning, and you can really see this hyper aggression. So I don't like competitive nature to that level. I'm certainly competitive and get excited when I win and things like that, but to bring the entire joy of the game, both for yourself and by collateral to other people,
Yeah.
by winning or losing
Yeah.
is something I don't
Yeah.
handle well.
And that's like a subcategory, so to speak, of bad winner, bad loser, right?
Yeah,
You only like the game when you win. I hear people do all the time, like, oh, I hate that game. I can't win. Well, but is it a good game? Are you having a fun time? I never, I mean, literally, most of the games that I suck at the most are my favorite games. And I don't know because I'm trying to be better at it. I'm trying to figure the game out more. I'm trying to enjoy the
Yeah,
experience of Corey like honing me again and again. And I'm just trying to feel like, how is he doing that? I
I
gotta try to
lose
do his
all the
things.
time.
Yeah. And I have got some of my friends back in New Jersey. They say that I'm like the worst gamer, meaning like I'm bad at games. They say to me, and I'm like, I don't really think that's true. I think I win about an average amount of time, like 1 in 4, right? I mean, the number of people you
Yeah,
normally play with. But of course, since I'm also the most animated, chatty person out there, it might look like I lose more, right? But yeah. What do you guys think out there? I just placed this question up there in our guild under playtesting number 309. Please go to the guild, find this thread, and answer the question.
awesomeness.
And in the meantime, Corey, it's time for the final scoring.
All right.
Thank you all so much for listening. Help us spread the word by telling everyone about this podcast, to download it wherever they like to get their podcasts, or of course, watch it on the Podfather of Gaming YouTube channel. And if you want to be part of this with us, please go over to the guild, look for the questions that we ask you for playtesting, and ask us questions for strategy and tactics. Put it up there. We will get to these questions and these answers. Check out our websites, which are portalgamesus.com, podfathergaming.com, dicetowerdish.com, and play2zgames.com. On social media, please like our Facebook pages /BoardGamesInsider /PortalGamesUS /PodfatherGaming /Play2ZGames, and talk directly to Ignacy, Corey, and Steven on Twitter or X, Instagram. It's at Portal Games US, at Podfather Gaming, at Dice Tower Dish, and the YouTube channels again, Portal Game Studios, the Podfather of Gaming, and especially Above Board TV. TikTok is Ignacy Alone, Portal Games US. We're going to see you next week. Corey and I will be at Dice Tower West. In fact, when you hear this podcast, if you're listening to it there, come find us. Do you know that I'll say that at the end. Special thing that I'm going to say at the end.
Okay.
Joshua Bowman from Tabletop Submarine Podcast professionally edits this for us. You can reach him to do your podcast at tabletopsubmarine@gmail.com. And that great voice you hear doing the intro and the outro and all those segments, it's Ray Greenlee. Contact him to do your voiceover work at raygreenleevoiceover.com. So, well, you put something over here already. Look at this.
You can take the floor, sir. You
I'll
seem
go
very
first,
excited.
and then you
All right.
say, all right. So all I was going to say was that at Dice Tower West, did you know they have a Lord of the Rings room?
I did actually.
I get to be like that. I dress up as Arwen, and you can be, Aragorn, and we can do scenes together. What do you think?
Absolutely, we can stare wistfully into each other's eyes, and you can cry.
Speak in Elvish to each other, things like that.
Speak Elvish to each other.
But seriously, they have a Lord of the Rings room where the only thing that goes on in that room is War of the Ring, the card game, and other Lord of the Rings games.
There's so many Lord of the Rings games right now. The one that I want to play is there's a new Lord of the Rings game from the designer of Pillars of the Earth, which is a classic Euro that's amazingly good. I don't know anything about this new game. I want to play it.
Is it actually out?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
It's out in Europe.
Oh, well, if maybe they'll have it there. I would absolutely try it if you could find it, teach it. Yeah. Let's do that. But anyway, I'm gonna be sauntering in that room. I have at least one game of War of the Rings scheduled with good friend. He goes to all the Dice Tower events. Trey and Mariana, lovely people. So I'm gonna be playing War, his first play ever. So I made him
awesome.
Read the rules, make sure he knows it, and then we'll play that. So that's my one game, and I might play some more if I can just find some more people hanging out in that room. What do you have here? I see that you wrote something.
I just wanted to say that Dice Tower Dish is back up and running.
Oh,
this is all completely my fault. So Dice Tower Dish is an interview website that I did years ago, and I would take a designer out to dinner, record the conversation, and it's all written. I would write out a transcribed interaction with snarky comments and pictures and things.
Of course.
But I've been about a year behind. I've had a couple interviews that just never got published, so they are now going up. My interview with Henry Audubon, which is about a year late, is being posted as we speak. There's half of it, 3 parts out of 6 are up, with part 4 coming up any day now. It's really interesting because the timing actually works out pretty good. Henry's talking about his game Flow with Pika Games, which just hit Kickstarter this week, but he's talking about early design of it a year ago. And he talks about design of Cosmoctopus, which did very well, and lots of other things. So
E-
Dice Tower Dish, I'm going to try to keep it up and running.
Excellent. And he's a great guy. Henry is a just a
I
lovely
love
gentleman.
Henry to
Yeah.
death.
Nice, nice man. All right, right. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you hopefully next week here on the podcast and maybe in person at Dice Tower West. Take care, everybody. Bye now.
Perfect. See y'all later.